David, thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to have you as our Lida Hill guest. First of all, how has your trip been so far? How are you liking this summit?
Oh yeah, well, first thank you all for coming and joining the Fireside Chat. I think it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces at this point. The last couple of days has given me the chance to meet a lot of you, and I'm really excited about that opportunity to expand my personal network with you all. It's been fantastic. Just thinking back to when I was in your shoes, I really wish I would have had an opportunity, something like this, to be a part of. We were joking about it in the chemistry building. They were horribly non-social, and so it was not a good social environment, generally speaking, in grad school anyway. So it's a lot of fun to see the very strategic effort being put behind Nucleate and what you guys are accomplishing.
So you said that you're here growing your personal network, and it kind of makes you reminiscent of the time that you were in our shoes. Why don't you tell us about the journey that's led you here?
Yeah, sure. So I'll step back just a little bit farther and tell you my background. I don't know how many of y'all are first generation scientists? Anybody? Yeah, that's huge. Most people don't realize that that is a really unique minority group, because I don't know about you guys. My parents had no, they were highly educated people, but they were in theology and studying language and linguistics, and were educators, but they had nothing to do with science at all. Not because they didn't want to, they just didn't know anything about it. And so when I first started my journey as an undergrad, I had no mentorship, and I didn't really know how to go about getting engaged in the community, the scientific community, and getting that mentorship. So it was a really kind of a rough journey, to be honest with you. I kind of kept doing things because either I was really interested in it or I happened to be good at it, and that's why I went the direction I went with biochemistry. I was actually kind of thinking about being a music major, but I realized I was going to have to make a lot of people like listening to me sing uh, to make any money, and I didn't think that was going to happen. And so, uh, science, biochemistry was something that I felt like, hey, that sounds like a really fascinating career, and I did a little bit of research on it and started studying. So, studied Texas Tech. I did all my degrees there. Bachelor's in biochemistry, master's in electroanalytical chemistry, and a PhD was in chemistry, chemical engineering. I was my advisors, co-advisors were married. One was from Montana, the other one was from England. He really outkicked his coverage with his wife. He was a nice guy, but she was much more eloquent
Okay.
with an English accent. And so, but he was the engineering side, and had an opportunity to stay and do that, and it was wonderful.
That's amazing. So what after? So we're a student now. We're kind of trying to figure out music now. Done a PhD. So what was your thought process like that last year PhD where you're trying to figure out like what am I going to do? Like just talk to me a little bit about that thought process and then where you ended up.
Well,
And
yeah.
where did you think you were going to end up and then where you actually did?
Well, I didn't really love higher ed. Okay. So I kind of always, every time I graduated, I started looking for a job, or was getting close to graduating. I was looking for a job, and the job opportunities that existed were like a little bit underwhelming. They weren't exactly what I wanted to do. And I was like, man, I don't really want to spend that much time and energy pursuing that particular trajectory. And then I kept getting a better opportunity to stay in school. So I did. And I kept getting more advanced degrees, but it's really interesting. So I finished my PhD in 2009, and it was a pretty bad economic downturn. And I had interviewed all over everywhere, kind of coast to coast. And I had an opportunity thanks. Appreciate that.
You've been blessed.
Yeah, that's right. That's probably somebody telling me I should go down a different storyline. But I had a great opportunity to go to Sandia National Labs in their nuclear proliferations unit, and was having some final on-site interviews, and then they told me they couldn't pay me because they had done a federal pay freeze at that time, and they didn't know how long that was going to last. And I thought that sounded like a terrible idea. And I ended up taking a job in a startup company based out of Lubbock, Texas. There was a contract research lab doing next generation sequencing services. for a wound care physician, and he was a real visionary, a guy named Randy Walcott,
Mhm.
and he saw that platform as the future of personalized medicine.
Mm.
He felt like, hey, if we can map the microbial bioburden in some of these big wounds, we can actually maybe take, personalized care from like antibiotic gradients across that wound bed to see if we can treat areas within that wound differently. And he had remarkable success. And so the next iteration of that, somebody said, well, hey, we've got this investor that really wants to see if we can use this to see if we can detect um, insect vector-borne pathogens in blood and tissue samples. And they turned around and looked at me. I'd been there for 2 weeks, and they turned around and looked, hey, you got a PhD. Do you want to come run this for us? And I was like, yeah, can I get a raise? Because they didn't pay me very much. And they were like, yeah, we'll give you a raise. So I went down that path, and it was one of the most remarkable journeys. It was like a roller coaster of life in a startup. Now back up just a little bit. In college, grad school, nobody talked about commercialization at all. Okay, nobody talked about patents. Nobody talked about intellectual capital. Nobody talked about products and services and translating research into impact. Those were not buzzwords, and that was not something as part of the vernacular that was there. So you dive into this world of innovation and entrepreneurship, and I know now, I didn't even know what to call myself then, but I was an entrepreneurial lead for a brand new company. And as a part of that journey, I got to build a BSL2 laboratory. I got to build sales and marketing teams on the East and the West Coast. We introduced a product to market, had a lot of commercialization success, and had a great time and met some wonderful people along the way. And so that journey, once you get innovation and entrepreneurship in your blood, it doesn't wash off. You just like, it's like this cyclical process. Like you can't wait to get the next thing started, right? So I commend you all, as you are all here. So many of you raised your hand when I said first generation scientist, first generation innovator. How many of you have like been part of a patent application? Has anybody done that? Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, so it goes much smaller, much faster, right? So but if you're part of that journey and part of the startup journey, then you're in for a heck of a ride, but you'll have more fun than you've ever had. You'll learn more than you'll ever imagine, and you'll get challenged personally to keep adding skills and abilities to your own portfolio.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of what happened along the way. I got interested in patent law because a CFO at a board meeting said, hey, we need a patent on this. David, you got a PhD. Does it sound familiar? Like, you got a PhD. Go file a patent.
Figure it out.
Yeah. And so I did what every young graduate would do. Yes, sir. So I took off and I started investigating. I really got fascinated with how there's good patents and bad patents, and how the language matters, the words matter, the terms of art and intellectual property. It was like this whole other language that opened up in my world. And so, if you look at my resume, some people say it looks like spaghetti on a wall, but there's actually more coordination than that. But the opportunity there was to really, you think about the Venn diagram of science, business, and law, and when those circles overlap, and the center focal point of that, innovation and entrepreneurship, and as an entrepreneurial lead in startup, you're operating in the center of those spaces. So you get to learn how to speak those languages, and if you can't speak those languages, you surround yourself with people that can. So it's a really fascinating journey.
That's amazing. I'm so inspired by the fact that you have hit that trifecta, and now you are the person that can be at the center of that triangle, and also can communicate this so eloquently to a bunch of people who are learning to get there, right? And so why don't you tell us about a little bit about your new role as the director of Pegasus Park, and one thing I'm really excited to learn is, what do you want to accomplish in your first year? Like, what is your biggest milestone that you want to see happening in Dallas ecosystem and Texas in general?
I deliver the milestones my ownership group has laid out for me. That's what I've got to.
Personally,
Yeah.
if I'm sure you have your own set of personal goals, right?
No, I
for
do.
your job.
Yeah. No. So place-based innovation. there's a little more to the story to get to that piece. um, the startup journey, for all of you that are engaged in that are interested in your own company, interested in part of being these type of innovation, place-based innovation ecosystems, um, it's very strategic, and you need to identify these resources in your local community, because if you can be part of these ecosystems, and they're spread out over the globe, and I'll talk a little bit more about what makes up an innovation district or an innovation hub. um, it's really the opportunity for your company to be logarithmically more successful exists in an area of innovation. And so there's several of those that are around here, Kendall Square.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard a couple of things about that this weekend. There was a panel
Mm-hmm.
that described, removing barriers for
Mm-hmm.
startups. Well, you've got people strategically thinking about how to make it so that if you're an innovator, if you're an entrepreneur in that ecosystem, all you have to worry about is commercializing your technology,
Mm-hmm.
and all the other things the community is helping support you accomplish. Okay, so that's a big step in the process. So as part of my journey, I ended up leading intellectual property and licensing at a couple of different universities. I ended up being president and CEO of a nonprofit that ran an innovation district. I had the chance to be a vice chancellor for economic development at an R1 research university, and lead at that cabinet level. And academics from do we have to record all of this? Can I
No.
say, no, I'm kidding, go ahead.
Yeah.
You can keep playing. But higher ed and economic development, I describe it as pushing a wet noodle across the table with one finger, right? So you get to push and it's sticky, and so you have to keep going here and there and all the way across. And it's exhausting to do that. And there are a lot of reasons for that, and I learned what some of those reasons are. um, and we could talk about that's probably
Yeah.
another hour, but we won't go into down to that road. um, but in that journey, I got to really focus on looking at the 30,000-foot perspective and analyzing the components of a successful ecosystem around particular business verticals. And so what you do is, if you start studying place-based innovation and innovation districts, is you find that these all have their own fingerprint. Each one of them, what happens is a area of excellence emerges. And if you want to be successful in a particular type of startup, then you will try to be a part of that ecosystem, because the barrier to entry is so low. All right, that's two, so I'm gonna have to change next segment, right?
Right.
No, but that's a lot of it's taking that initiative to find your community or be a part of one, and then take steps to uh, reduce those barriers, is what really became a passion project for me, as I started helping other innovators and entrepreneurs that were spinning companies out of the universities that I was a part of, especially ones that were from underserved populations, people that spoke different languages, um, trying to put a pitch deck together and communicate to an investor group, if your native language is Chinese, is a very powerfully hard, difficult thing to do, and they need help. And so I found um, a lot of personal enjoyment in being able to help people in that environment.
It's amazing.